Thank you for having me here.
Girls. Look, girls, a crane. If you see a crane, you'll be going on a big journey.
All the Armenian men of Zaytun have disappeared.
Annie, don't scare the children.
But that's the truth.
Bunları birbirine bağlayın. Çekin. Kurşun harcamadan.
I was at the premiere yesterday, and after 2 hours, I left the cinema, and I'm still trying to process the feelings, the impressions that I got from the film. You know, in a 100-year period of sorrow, of the grand narrative of the Armenian pain that we, 3-4 generations after the 1915 Armenian Genocide, continue to grapple with, continue to process. Any film, any book, any initiative that tries to tackle that issue somehow isn't able to tell the full story. There are so many layers in this story, in this grand narrative that we have as Armenians, and that you, as a Turkish filmmaker, as a German-Turkish filmmaker, try to grapple with in this film. This morning, I have a different impression of the film. And of course, you know, with the historical and cultural and social baggage that we bring as individuals to what we see and experience, it's always not very easy to talk about these issues. And I don't want to start with the standard question, why did you feel it was important to make this film? You know, we can talk about that later. But do you think that you were able to tell the story that needed to be told?
It was my story, what had to be told. You know, my personal perspective on this issue. You know, but this is, in a way, a handling of material I always do for all of my films. You know, all of my films are like personal. You know, it's my personal attitude and my personal angle. You know, and here it is a very complicated global issue, the Armenian genocide. You know, it's not just your genocide, it's also my genocide, because my culture did that, my people did that. You know, they were the activists on that, and you were the sacrifice. But this connects us. You know, so I come from another angle. I come from another culture where I think that this tragedy is something what belongs to me, you know, what belongs to my daily life, in a way. Because if I want or not, I'm very interested, or I'm very linked to what's going on in Turkey today. You know, every day I read what's the news in Turkey. I read from abroad. I read from Germany, mostly German newspapers. You know, like what is the new thing, what is the new deal, you know. And a lot of issues we have in Turkey today, I'm absolutely sure that they were based on 1915. They were based on the Armenian Genocide, you know. And so I had a feeling to tell a story about that, but I have to make it personal. So I make it one man's story, and it's because I'm a man. It's a father's story because I'm a father, you know. And it's a story of a naive person. Such a film, such a personal angle cannot explain or fill in the gap or the knowledge of the whole genocide. But it was never meant with that purpose.
Right. Certainly, what we do, depending on what we do, is informed by our own personal narrative. This was part of a trilogy, this film, on love, death, and the devil.
Yeah.
And in the first two films that you had made, Head On and The Edge of Heaven, and it's about Turks And at the end of those movies, they return back to Turkey. They return back to their villages. Now, in the cut, when Nazaret finds his daughter, you see them walking off, you know, in the Great Plains of North America, walking off to an unknown destination. If you were to continue the story, where would they end up?
I think somewhere in Fresno, Minneapolis. I think.
Yeah, but you see, I mean, this is what I walked away from that film thinking, okay, is this the end of the story? Is this the upheaval? Because as a diasporan Armenian, as an Armenian who has grown up with this, who inadvertently passed it on to my children, and my children will pass it on to their children, does the story have an end?
Well, I'm not a big fan of the idea of soil.
Of?
Soil, earth, you know, this is my soil, and this, you know, this soil where the blood was flooded in and stuff like this. I don't really believe in that. I'm too much a person of today, you know, and the real soil for me is, because I'm such a person, it's my personality, is I'm a family man, you know, if I want or not, you know, I come from a big family where the family is a safe institution where you can trust on, you know. It's like you cannot trust on governments. I was too many times disappointed by political ideals, you know. I don't trust them, you know. So the only constitution somehow which seemed to work is the family, you know. I definitely believe in that. So there was a big family in the beginning of the picture, and it's just two had survived, and both were cripples. One is like mute and just refining his voice, and the other one, his daughter, is linking. They survived the genocide. This is the rest of the family.
Sure. I mean, the concept of a family being a micro-civilization of where you find safety and security and identity. Certainly, I think that it's a global, it's a human condition. Perhaps as somebody who never lost soil, it's easy to see that, but for somebody who has lost that, it's difficult to only see that part of it.
Well, my parents left their soil somehow, you know, in the 60s, and I was born in Germany, you know, which is a completely different soil than the Turkish soil, and I can compare the soils because I was traveling back and forth. I still do that,
right?
You know, and it's never a question of choice. It's a question of choice.
Sometimes it isn't, right?
Yeah, if it's a question of choice, like, yeah, I live in Germany, you know, it's more safer for me, it's my home, you know, because I was born there, I speak the language, you know, I know the culture, you know, and it's a place where I'm at least free. In Turkey, I think it wouldn't take 5 minutes and I would be in prison.
Right.
You know, yeah. So, in the cut, you know, it's about migration too, forced migration. The migration of my parents was not forced migration, you know, but migration. People leaving their homes and find, you know, try to build up a new home. This is what America is about, you know. So this is the American tragedy is about, if you want, you know. But America is based on immigrants from all over the world.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of moments where, you know, I had seen Elia Kazan's movie America
Yeah.
about 15 years ago, 20 years ago. There were so many, there were a lot of similarities almost for me with your film.
Yeah.
And because I love that film, I mean, that whole story of the man, you know, dreaming of going to America and all
Yeah.
and that. So,
But this is choice. This is choice.
Sure. I just, you know, there's many questions I want to ask, but one in particular, several in particular. You know, I was looking for symbolism in the film, and I didn't need to look very far. A lot of it sort of came, I mean, the fact that he was mute. Were you trying to say something? Was that about stifling free speech? Was that about the denial? Was that about the Armenians not having a voice? Or was that just a way for him to have been able to travel all the places that he did travel? The fact that the daughter was crippled, like you said, was there an intention with that?
Yeah, sure. You know, I mean, one of the general motivations for me doing this film is like, this is kind of like defending the idea of freedom of speech, you know, because we couldn't speak about the Armenian genocide openly in Turkey. We still cannot do it very openly.
Oh, but much has changed though now.
Much has changed, you know, but you know, there was a time for me in Turkey before the film and after the film. You know, I was a very popular person in Turkey. Everybody liked me. I walked on the street and everybody invited me. You know, cab drivers. No, not after this film. It's had changed. I cannot openly walk in Turkey anymore. You know, this is the price I have to pay, and this is because of freedom of speech. Right. What else?
Fatih, you know, as Armenians, as I said, we confront our history on a daily basis. Perhaps most Turks do as well. Certainly you do. That burden that you felt, that burden of responsibility to make the film, was it a burden of responsibility?
It was a burden of responsibility.
And does it finish now? Is it done for you? You've done the film.
I don't think a film can solve that.
For you individually, as an artist, as a filmmaker?
I tell you something about the Holocaust, the German Holocaust. You know, I never felt responsible for it. You know, I was very early aware about the Armenian genocide. Not now. This is something what happened in my 20s. Like, I think these guys did that, you know, and because all of the way they act and behave looks like they did it and they hide it. They don't look relaxed, you know. So I think, yeah, the guys did it. And then I made my research and that confirmed it, you know. So coming back to the German Holocaust, it was like, it was never my thing, you know. My parents, my grandparents, my family never killed any Jews in Germany, you know. So I don't need that Holocaust. I have my own genocide, you know, I have to deal with. Today, I don't think like this. Today, I think like I'm responsible for the German Holocaust as much as I'm responsible for the Armenian genocide, as much I'm responsible for any genocide, anything what humans do to other humans, because I'm a human. You know, I'm a human being, and so I have a certain responsibility for my species, especially as an artist, which means I'm a storyteller, and every story, if you want or not, has a certain moral, you know.
In the film, now, just getting back, before I talk about that particular aspect of the film, the name, The Cut. In Armenian, it was translated to mean like a scar, so after a cut. But when I first heard about The Cut, I thought, is it a movie cut? Is it a cut in history? Is it a cut? Is it a physical cut? What does the name really mean for you?
The Cut, the title was born here in Yerevan, actually. You know, I was at the memorial 5 years ago. I had not a title for the film, but the project was... You
had it in your mind.
I had it in my mind. It just had started. And I had no title, and I went to the memorial, and it was Haik Demolian who was leading me at the memorial. And there is this the tree, you know, the statue of the tree. I said, this is a tree, and the tree represents the Armenian folk, you know, the Armenian people, and there is a cut in the tree, you know, which is the genocide, actually, you know. Divide the tree into those who remain here and those who went abroad. So he was mentioning the cut. I was like, this is a good title for a film. Cut from your family, cut from your soil, cut from your voice strings, you know. It's a symbolized title in a way, and yeah, it sounds a bit ridiculous, but I always was looking for a title which sounds a bit like Western, you know. I use the scale or the genre of a Western for doing this. I need something which is framing me, like, because there's so much to tell.
Yeah, there's so many layers to the story. It really is very difficult. Throughout the film, we see how Nazaret encounters people who help him through his journey, help him to survive, help him to try and find his daughters who have now left and gone to, across the ocean. Certainly there is documented evidence of Turks who did save Armenians. And in the movie there is several instances where the Turkish, the one who had deserted the military, the army, who do help him. One jarring thing for me was the scene where the Armenian woman is being raped by the Turkish gendarme. Her children are there and she's screaming for her children to walk away, to run away, not to witness that. And certainly rape and sexual crime were a component of the genocide. And then we're in the United States, and then there's another rape scene. This time it's an American raping a girl on a railroad track. It almost was trying to take away from that aspect, that component of genocide, that rape is rape, and for a second, for me, it was, what were you trying to say with that?
I tried to say very clearly that that the genocide he had survived and he had been witnesses, it had to appear again by seeing another genocide. But but it had to appear again. It's like when the second half of the story came, like the moment, the turning point of the film is the hero understands and finds out that his daughters are alive. The film changed its rhythm. The film changed its style of storytelling, if you want. The first part of the film was just the surviving, and the second part is the quest, and like the obsession, finding the daughters. So I was not sure how to treat the genocide aspect in the second part of the film. There were certain concepts, some mathematic concepts, I'm not sure if they work out or not. One really was that I thought about Turkish audiences a lot, where I want them to identify with an Armenian hero. And I thought the only way how a Turkish audience, especially a fascist or somebody, could identify with the hero is that after a while, the audience forget that the guy is an Armenian. He's a father looking for his children. And I think that works. I witnessed that, how it worked. I have people who are fascist, friends of mine who I grown up with, from the MHP party, my father is from the MHP party, I know how they work. And this worked, but I needed that the Armenian genocide pop up later on in the film. But I didn't know exactly how. Should a Turkish character appear? It was not something what I really felt comfortable with, a Turk in the middle of the plain land.
North Dakota, yeah.
But if he sees a crime, and
how do you react?
We have to know that this is still in him. That was the idea. That was the concept of the scene with the Native American. But a lot of people have problems with that scene, and I still try to understand.
Yeah,
that.
right.
But that was the motivation of the scene.
Fatih, anybody who tries to do something that they believe is right, but yet goes against society's impressions, perceptions, knowledge, is always going to come up against opposition, sometimes radical opposition. They will be criticized. And I don't care how long you've been around, how long you've been in the business, who you are, any kind of severe criticism affects you. It doesn't matter how thick your skin is. As somebody, you mentioned your father, what was the reactions from your close associates, your friends, your family, about making this film? Were they critical? Did they say, what are you doing and why?
There were a lot of people around me, in my close circle, who are asking me that, like, what are you doing and why? Yeah. A lot. And my wife, who's actually not Turkish and not Armenian at all, you know, she's half German, half Mexican. Like, do you have to do this? You know, it's like, because we have kids, you know. Say, yeah, I have to do this, and I will find a way out, you know, how to leave you out of this, you know. And my parents are like, oh. I don't care so much about the government or politics. I don't care, you know.
People who are close to you, that's what matters to you.
This is something much more which matters, you know, the people who are really close to you. And, you know, people who are close to me who had problems in the beginning, why I'm doing this, they like the film. They're defending the film, you know, and it worked for them. But this is the film where I get most criticized, you know.
Of all the body of work that you've had.
Yeah, I never had been criticized so hard for a film like this one, you know, and from every angle. From Turks,
angle. From Armenians, from film
Americans,
critics.
From the Germans, or especially the Germans, you know, from everybody.
Well, maybe you did something right.
I guess so. I start to think like this.
So, you know, there were a lot of critiques of the film, and I read many of them, and we actually interviewed people who liked the film, people who didn't like the film, and it was really interesting because there were Turks who said that the film didn't go far enough. You know, those Turks who do want the government of Turkey to recognize the Armenian genocide. But there was one review from The Guardian that said, it is a forceful, watchable, strongly presented picture and a courageous, honest gesture from Fatih Akin. This was as honest as you could be, I presume, yes?
Yeah, whatever the film is, it's an honest picture, really. You know, this film is from the heart. I truly believed in it. In every moment I worked on that, and I worked a lot on that because I worked 5 years on that. It was an honest expression, you know. So in my definition of cinema is, if something is honest, it must be okay. I believe in that. So if this is my honest expression, and it's not something which is wanted or it's so criticized, what can you do?
Right.
What
but the important thing,
I cannot lie.
Sure, it's about your integrity, your personal integrity. If you are honest to yourself, then that's the only thing you could do, and that's the best you can do.
Well, I always worked like that, and sometimes, or in the past, it was very successful, to be honest, you know. And this time, it is the thing where I get criticized. Sometimes I ask myself, is this film coming too late, or is this film coming too early, you know, too soon? It's something, I don't know, because it's about lack of knowledge. I'm sure about that, you know. When you have a film like The Pianist by Polanski, you don't know why the Nazis killed the Jews. The film is not explaining that. There is no scene of Hitler in the 1920s in Vienna, you know, becoming an anti-Semite, you know. You haven't these scenes. But that was the case. But you have the knowledge. You know everything about the Holocaust in school and this and that. It's not my job, if I do such a film, you know, to explain the very complex complicity of the genocide. Not in one film.
Well, it certainly contributes to the body of work that needs to keep growing for everybody to have that knowledge and to know about the genocide. And as humans, as global citizens, it's all of our responsibilities, I think.
This film is made with the motivation, and I witnessed that, you know, too little, but I witnessed that people, Western people, Turkish people, kids, young people, 18, 19, 20 years old, they came out of the picture. The first thing, they took their smartphones, they went to Wikipedia and researched about the genocide. They say, I didn't know these things. This is how I watch movies. I watch a movie, you know, the other day I watched a film, I don't know, any film, My Sweet Pepperland, you know, by Haner Salem, you know, about Kurdistan. I don't know nothing about the Kurdish state, you know. So I saw the film. It's not that the film explained to me how Kurdistan works, you you know.
But it's the catalyst for you to learn more about it.
I go to the library and I buy a book about Kurdistan. This is the next thing I'm going to do. This is how I watch movies, you know. Am I the only one who watch movies like that?
No, that's
Okay.
how we all are. That's how I am too, so.
Yeah, the times have changed, that you need information. We live in the area of information. Inform yourself. Don't be too lazy.
That's right. Well, Fatih Akin, thank you. Thank you for being our guest. Thank you for helping us or making us think and experience things in a different way from your perspective, from your honest sort of place in your life. Thank you very much. And I think we have a small surprise for you.
Yeah.
One of Armenia's preeminent caricaturists, Vresh Kasuni, while we've been doing this interview, has been drawing you. Oh, the cut! Oh, very cool. And I'd like to remind our viewers that my guest was filmmaker Fatih Akin, who is in Yerevan for the premiere of his film, The Cut. Stay with CivilNet.